Shalom and welcome again to another edition of Seekers of Meaning, the podcast arm of Jewish Sacred Aging. I'm your host, Rabbi Richard Address, the director of Jewish Sacred Aging. Welcome, and I really thank you for joining us. The issue that we're going to address today is something that is exploding around not only the American Jewish community, but the general American community, and that is the issue of mental health as a result of the pandemic, but also the whole conversation around bringing mental health intergenerationally within families and communities. And to lead us into this discussion and to teach us a little bit about some very, very dynamic programs that really affect all generations within families. It's a pleasure to welcome to Seekers of Meaning, Dr. Rabbi. I just gave you, oh, you are a doctor. That's right. Forgot.
You were my advisor.
Yeah. So you see, you planted that seed in me, and it was like the old days. Rabbi Doctor, evidently that's the appropriate way to do this. Rabbi Dr. Lori Braun, the Director of Outreach for the Youth Mental Health Project. Lori, nice to see you.
Great to see you, Rabbi Address. Thank you for having me on.
Oh, well, so we can drop the formalities. So it's nice it's good to see you. When beautiful, you're coming to us from beautiful Bucks County, if I'm not mistaken, right?
I am. A recent transplant from New York City.
So, Lori, there was an article that was published in the end of September in the Washington Post that was really, really just a riveting article. The headline is, "After COVID, we are all going to need some help." And it detailed this analysis of mental health issues. But it's not only after COVID. We're smack dab in the middle of, is it right to call it a mental health epidemic? Is that a correct statement?
I haven't heard epidemic, but I would say crisis for sure. At the Youth Mental Health Project, we have always worked with families who are in moments of struggle. And what we said when this pandemic started is, now everyone is joining us. Not that we want all to be in crisis, but we do want all to be candid about mental health. Our tagline is, we all have mental health. So it's not that we don't walk around saying to someone, feel good or you feel bad? What do you got? Right? Physical health too. How are you doing? I'm okay. My knee hurts a little. It's a continuum. And the same is true for mental health. And for a myriad of reasons, our society is not so comfortable talking about mental health.
Yeah, talk to me about that. It's easier to talk about cancer, isn't it, than it is about...
Oh, my goodness. Yes. In fact, our founding director and past executive director, Andy Silverman, tells her own personal story of dealing with two issues at once: a child who is suffering through a mental health crisis and a diagnosis of breast cancer. Wow. The whole wide world ignores the mental health crisis, doesn't know what to do about it, really shuts her out. Suddenly she gets cancer and everyone shows up at her doorstep with casserole. And she actually made a film of her story. Let's see if I can hold this up correctly. It's called No Letting Go. And That's actually one of the pieces she wanted to explore, was what is it about our world that, a child with a mental health crisis, we want to put in the corner and not look at, but cancer here, how can we help? What can we do? And so I'm glad you brought up that analogy, because that's part of what inspired her to say, we got to change this. There's no way we can keep this issue in the shadows. And what she did was she founded our not-for-profit, the Youth Mental Health Project, in her own living room and started inviting families in. And all of a sudden, parents, particularly moms, would show up saying, my kid won't go to school either. My kid has panic attacks too. Nobody will listen. Everyone says, oh, you're just anxious yourself, mom. Oh, it's just a phase. He'll be fine. Even doctors, everywhere many of these parents went, they were not getting answers. She started to travel with her message, and lo and behold, everywhere she went, she found parents who were struggling in isolation too, and founded this organization to stop the isolation and to start the conversation that we all have mental health, children, adults, every stage of the life cycle. And to answer your question, yes, during the pandemic, it became okay to talk about mental health. So in our eyes, that is one of the good outcomes of this very painful, awful pandemic, is that we're finally being honest, that mental health affects, it's something we have, just like physical health. It's, we're feeling better, we're feeling worse from one day to the next. It's not that we deal with the mentally ill, right? We all have mental health. We're all some days healthier than others. So long answer, but yes.
No. But thank you. But I mean, this is a family systems issue. So we have people who are part of Jewish Sacred Aging and people who listen to these podcasts are not only moms and dads, but they're grandmoms and grandpops as well. And so I think it's important for me to people to understand that it is a family systems issue. It's not just isolated. So, and I know you have some programs, but before we get into the programmatic aspect, the personal aspect, what drew you to working in this field? I mean, did you just have an aha moment on the West Side Highway one day, or on the number 1 train, or what drew you?
Well, I have to go back to my very first year as a rabbinic student in Los Angeles. My first internship was at a residential treatment center for kids who were struggling with abuse, family systems issues, all kinds of issues, and for those reasons needed to be in a residential treatment setting. It was a profound experience for me, and I got to work as part of an office they called the Religious and Cultural Office. And this is where kids came to grow spiritually as they were dealing with their mental health issues and their trauma issues. So that was where it started. It still exists. It's called Vista Del Mar in Los Angeles.
I know Vista Del Mar. I know this.
Oh.
When I started my first 6 years of out of HEC were in LA. And I know Vista Del Mar. It's a very, very powerful organization. I think there was somebody who taught in my religious school. This is going back to the 1970s, who also was on staff at Vista Del Mar at that time. So you had good training there.
It was an extraordinary place, and it was really a foundational place of learning for me in my rabbinic journey. And that was when I was the tender age of about 23 or 24. And as I went through my own life, I started to see struggles in my own extended family and friend groups, families whose kids were struggling and who were not able to get help. And eventually it even touched my own family, that here I was a rabbi, congregational rabbi, a school rabbi, working as a youth rabbi, doing fellowships and experiential youth education, workshops about how to reach our young people. And in my own extended family, we were having struggles that we weren't able to address, and we couldn't find support. And very similar to what Randy describes in her story. And it turns out, 5 to 10 years ago, I was working at a synagogue that showed her film, and I was really touched by it. And when the pandemic hit, I said, I need to go back and find this woman and volunteer, do whatever I can to help support this mission, because the whole world is going to begin to be affected by this, and there's so much need. So I really shifted my rabbinic focus to working with youth mental health, even though it had been a through line throughout my career. This is the first time I'm working in an organization beyond the Jewish community that reaches people of all backgrounds to support youth mental health.
So right now is a good time. If somebody's listening and said, I really want to get a hold of this organization, what's the contact information? What's the website?
Great. So the best starting place is our website, which is ymhproject.org. We're the Youth Mental Health Project. So that's www.ymhproject.org. We also offer these really extraordinary parent support groups that happen regularly, several times a week. Some are in person throughout the country, but a majority of our groups have gone online and virtual during the
Right.
pandemic, which is another, silver lining that we're able to reach so many more families. And for that, if families would like to register to be part of a support group, we're on a platform called Support Groups Central. So that's Support Groups, plural, central.com/YMHP. And there you can register for any number of our groups, including the intergenerational groups that we're starting to launch in several weeks.
Okay, so talk to me about this because, again, family systems, grandparents involved. Talk to me about this intergenerational group that you're talking about. That's really,
Okay.
really very, very important.
So when Randy started these groups in her living room and opened the doors and people started whispering to each other, you're struggling, I'm struggling, let's talk about it. It was all very hush hush and kind of, people fighting the stigma one family at a time. What we realized over time is that we all have to be partners in telling these stories, right? When I first heard about the Parent Support Network, I said, we should be like AA. We should be in every church and synagogue basement. There should be a place to go if there's a mental health struggle happening in your family that day, that night. And with the pandemic, that's sort of what we're doing. We're able to offer these groups many times a week. When you go to Support Group Central and type in Youth Mental Health Project, you can find all the groups we offer. All our groups are always open to parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, extended family, guardians, anyone who needs the support. And when I came on board to the organization professionally, my own mom, who's a psychologist and who's traveled this journey with us as well, said, I want to be a volunteer leader too. And everyone on the team said, amazing, let's have grandparents leading groups for other grandparents. That's really needed. This affects every part of the family system. So I'm grateful to say that my mom, Joy Katz, went through our facilitator training, has become a facilitator, and we're going to start leading groups together called our intergenerational group. And we're hosting our very first one in October, specifically Tuesday, October 26th at noon. So while grandparents and parents are always welcome to all our groups, this group is specifically co-led by a parent-grandparent.
Okay, so once again, if somebody, this will post right before this group starts. And again, if as a grandparent or an aunt, uncle, et cetera, they want to get involved in one of the groups, they want to sign up. Again, how do they do that? And save you a phone call. Does it cost? If I'm a grandparent, I want to be part of this group. Does it cost? And is it how many weeks? Is it time? Is it just however long, or is it like 5 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks?
Great question. Well, Randy Silverman's mission when she founded this organization was that no one should be locked out of any program for any reason. And these parent support groups are always free with a suggested or donation welcome if you are able. So you do not have to pay a penny to participate. We welcome contributions because that's how we keep the lights on. But we are really open to all, and we mean that. The second question, the groups it's not like an 8-week class that you sign up for. They are all drop-in groups. And so any person can sign up at any time. You do have to pre-register. Although the groups are free, you do have to register at least half an hour in advance of each group so that our system at Support Group Central can get you up and running. Once again, that website is www.supportgroupscentral.com/YMHP. And you can also find the link on our general website, www.ymhproject.org. We really welcome families. Come once, come many times. Some people are very scared to attend their first one. And we always say you can be quiet and just be a listener if you'd like. We do go around and ask for your name and introduce yourself and what brought you to the group. But if you are not ready to tell your story, you certainly can be a listener And once people experience their first session, we find they almost always come back for more, because it is really sustaining. And, when you've heard from so many people, doctors, professionals, clinicians, your kid looks fine to me, and your kid is not fine, it's your peers who are able to give you the support you need and say, me too. We even have a sign. This is American Sign Language, or me too, or, same here. And so in our groups, we do that a lot. And it's really very affirming for the people who join us.
Are you finding a lot of resistance or acceptance or interest amongst clergy, amongst our colleagues for this?
Yes. I will say whenever I'm asked to speak at a meeting or go to a workshop, the line, if it's a physical thing, or the emails are kind of out the door. Can you come into our congregation? Can you talk about this? And actually, that's a great segue, because during the pandemic, suddenly we were inundated with phone calls and requests. My project during the pandemic, sort of inspired by our founder's film, was to create a second film called The Mental Health Monologues. And we invited young people, young writers, and young performers to submit to us. And these young writers talked about their own struggles with mental health and successes and triumphs. We wanted them to be able to remain anonymous. And so we hired young actors to tell their stories. And it became this beautiful 35-minute documentary called The Mental Health Monologues Youth Edition, that we use when we go around and teach in synagogue settings, church settings, school settings, and communal settings, to help others dig into their own stories.
So by the luck of technology and the magic of our producer, Steve Lubetkin, we have a little clip of one of the monologues, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So
that was your cue to say yes right away.
Yes, we do. And do you want me to set it up?
Set it up, and then we'll play it, and then we'll come back. Go ahead.
Okay,
set it up.
Terrific. So, when I thought about the work of sacred aging, Jewish sacred aging, one of the monologues really struck me as very relevant. It's the final monologue in the documentary, and it's called Dear 14-Year-Old Kayla. And the reason I love it so much is it's written by a 28-year-old named Kayla to her younger self at age 14. And at that age, she was sent to an inpatient facility in Texas to address her challenges with OCD. And she writes this letter to herself on the day she's released.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And it's so beautiful and poignant, and it's really what she wants that 14-year-old girl to know. And in the end, what she wants her to know is that she's going to be okay. And there's something very beautiful about her adult self knowing that 14-year-old is scared for her life, is afraid that OCD will follow her for the rest of her life. She'll never experience what she calls or considers normalcy. How is this going to go? And I'll leave it there and we have an amazing actor named Safwa performing the words of Kayla, Dear 14-Year-Old Kayla.
Well, Kayla, the answer is yes. Your OCD and anxiety will not be left behind in Texas. It is a part of you, just like the freckles on your face that come out in the sun. It's what you do with these diagnoses that set you apart from others. It will be prevalent at all your graduations in different ways, as well as first dates, boyfriends, and new friendships. And guess what? It will be prevalent on your wedding day too. But you realize you wouldn't want it any other way. Because these parts of you aren't bad. You spent so long trying to define your OCD and anxiety as bad. You weren't able to realize that in all bad things and hard times, all you had to do was open up your eyes to find the silver linings. You have to find the good, not just in yourself, but in the world around you. And damn, girl, you've become really good at finding the good. See those butterflies in your stomach when the uncertainty sets in? You will be able to see the beauty in it. You will realize how lucky you are to be able to manage these moments. And those specific moments are what remind you that you are alive. Yes, there will be days that are hard, but you, my dear, are resilient. You have already been through more than what most 30-year-olds are through at age 14. So please just do one thing for me before you walk out those double doors in the rush that you are in. Slow down. Take it all in. Appreciate what you have been through, but also realize the work that will always need to be done. Remember the people who helped you in your toughest hours. The staff members who didn't give up on you when you were ready to give up on yourself. Remember the tears, but also remember the laughter. Remember the smiles you brought to the clinical team's faces when you sang at your behavior planning meetings. Think about nighttime when you would leave your room to get warm milk to help you sleep, but it wasn't plain milk. It was chocolate, which defeated the purpose. Remember who you are right now. Hold on to that moment because it goes by in the blink of an eye. And remember, no matter how much changes in life, this moment will help shape you into a person you couldn't even fathom at the age of 14. And 14-year-old Kayla, you will be so damn proud of that person you have become. Love, 28-year-old Kayla.
So, Lori, this is, you use this when these films, the monologues, when you go out into an organization or in a teaching system. Are these available? I mean, if somebody wanted to bring the whole.
Yes. We produced this together. My team with the Mental Health Monologues and the Youth Mental Health Project, and we deliberately have it on our website as an educational tool that anyone can access. What you can do is also invite us in to lead a workshop around it. Some organizations are asking us to help their own students write their own monologues, tell their own stories. We had one synagogue invite us in around Purim time for 3 sessions and to talk about the masks that we wear. Very poignant during the pandemic when we're literally wearing masks.
That's right.
But we structure all our outreach and workshops in any way that a community needs. We have a vision that schools might invite us in to do their fall play, right? If they want the focus to be youth mental health, we can work with your students and help them tell their own stories and perform it for the community as an outreach effort to help us all get better at managing our own mental health and elevating it and treating it as important.
And of course, right, well, I shouldn't say of course, but right now, a lot of these are virtual, correct?
Correct. Many are virtual. We'll see what the winter holds as people may or may not get these booster shots. We're eager to get in person again at some point, but the joy of this kind of outreach is that we can do it virtually. And frankly, when we first started creating this film, we thought, oh, the pandemic will be over. We'll do these all in person. And we wound up making it as a documentary deliberately so that we could reach the most people.
Again, we're speaking with Rabbi Dr. Lori Braun, Director of Outreach for the Youth Mental Health Project, on a couple of these major programs that the Youth Mental Health Project has created, the intergenerational dialogues and the mental health monologues. I've got to ask you this because you went through the DMIN program at HUC.
With an excellent advisor.
Thank you. The training of chaplains to do counseling in mental health. Is the project involved with any of this at all? I mean, or if so, how? Because looking back on our seminary training, there were generalizations, but I'm not so sure we really were introduced to the levels of how to be a pastoral, how to do pastoral counseling with individuals dealing with mental health issues. Was your project involved with any of that?
I think that's a really good point. And you experienced it in your years of seminary. I experienced it in mine several decades later. It's been a blind spot, I would say, for some of our seminaries. What's happening now is we're finally getting much better at it, right? Our schools are finally requiring CPE and pastoral training of some kind. When I went through school, there was only one elective class I could take called The Rabbi in the Hospital with Rabbi Bill Cutter, and I took it, and it was very meaningful. But I didn't have the opportunity to be fully trained as a pastoral counselor, which is why I went back to get my doctorate, ministry and pastoral care. But I think what's happening now is that it is being integrated more into rabbinic and seminary life in general. And yes, that's something we'd love to get involved with. It hasn't been our mission so far because we've been working within family systems and doing this kind of family to family outreach, but it's something we're very open to.
So before we run out of time, and again, I want to thank you. One last easy softball question. I mean, really, this is easy. This is right out in the middle, hit it right out of the park. You're a rabbi, you've gone through this training. You've walked with this walk, as you say, with your own extended family. Where is your sense of faith and spirituality in all this?
That's the softball question?
Yes,
where is God? Interestingly, my faith was challenged when we were struggling to get support and couldn't find it anywhere, right? And the community was saying, you seem anxious. Your kid seems fine. See you next week. That was a crisis of faith, right? I am asking for help, which is not an easy thing for anyone to do. And I'm not finding it anywhere. And I don't want this to come off self-congratulatory, but where did I find that faith again? By finding other families going through the same thing. And that was what the Youth Mental Health Project was doing, right? And I needed to know I wasn't alone. So it wasn't about prayer. It wasn't about God, how could you do this to me? It was about saying, this is something that happens in the world, like diabetes, like anything. And many people go through this, and we have to find each other and we have to walk the path together. And thank you, God, for giving me the strength to keep going until I found my people.
Lori Braun, thank you. Real fast before we conclude, website, once again, how does somebody get a hold of
www.ymhproject.org, where all our organizational resources, everything we do to empower communities and families to support youth mental health. And then if you specifically want to sign up for one of our parent support groups or our intergenerational groups, you go to www.supportgroups, plural with an S, supportgroupscentral.com/YMHP.
Rabbi Dr. Lori Broom, thank you very, very much, Lori. Appreciate it. This is very, very important stuff. Congratulations. Stay healthy, stay safe, continued success in everything you do. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. And to you too, Rabbi Address. Be well. And we all have mental health. Let's take care of our mental health together.
And to all of you, thank you very, very much again for joining us on this edition of Seekers of Meaning, the podcast and TV arm of Jewish Sacred Aging. We welcome your contributions, tax-free donation. You can go to the website, jewishsacredaging.com, and click on the conveniently located donate button. And we invite you to visit our Jewish Sacred Aging Facebook page as long as you're in the social media neighborhood. Seekers of Meaning is produced at the Broadcast Center of Lubetkin Global Media here in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. And big shout out to our amazing genius producer, Steve Lubetkin. Again, I'm your host, Rabbi Richard Address. Thank you for joining us, and I look forward to greeting you on our next Seekers of Meaning TV show and podcast. In the meantime, everybody, stay safe, stay healthy. So long.